Welcome, gamers and tipsy adventurers, to the Overwhelmed Gamer Podcast, where we unravel the mysteries of our game backlog, sip on some questionable drinks, and dive headfirst into the nostalgic world of classics and the mind-bending realm of homebrews.
What is going on, everyone? And welcome to another episode of the Overwhelmed Gamer Podcast, where each episode we dive into a gaming topic, share what's currently gripping our controllers, and jump into the fascinating realm of homebrew games. We round it all out with our takes of the week, usually while sipping on a cocktail or two. This week, we are talking about the arcade and what it was like to visit it back when Keg and I were little, like 90 years ago. Not really that long, but who cares? You know what I mean. So we're talking arcade stuff, and in our homebrew overview, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Jeff Silvers, who is the new owner of Tengen Games. Yeah, that's right, Tengen Games, which is super cool. So we had a great discussion, and we talked about his new game, his first game under the Tengen Games name, and that's Zed and Zee. So super interesting conversation I had with Jeff, and you'll be hearing that at the end of the show. Lots to talk about, so grab your drinks, cut in line, steal somebody's turn in Pac-Man. Yeah, let's go. Quick bit of housekeeping before we get started. Not much, really. Podcast, we're still kind of, I don't know. I think the best way to do this is we're kind of shooting for making sure we do one a month, but then if we get an extra one in there somewhere, you're lucky. Maybe we won't, maybe we will. I don't know.
The bonus podcast.
Yeah. But we're gonna kind of keep it to like one a month, because I'm really trying to make sure we get the homebrew interviews in there. Just like this week, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned, because that interview that I had with Jeff is amazing, and to see somebody actually taking over the Tengen Games name is really sweet, and to be making games under that is cool. What else we got going on? Watch my YouTube, kind of focusing big time there. So if you don't know, I have a YouTube channel, and I post all kinds of retro gaming goodness there. Check out my streams. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday night at 10:30 Central Time. Oh, and I started streaming Saturdays as well, but I'm doing this like daddy-daughter stream stuff. So those streams are not always going to be retro. Like right now we're playing Rusty Lake Roots, which is like a point-and-click adventure horror kind of game, and it's super cool. And my daughter gets in there and hams it up, so it's kind of fun. Yeah, I think that's it. There's nothing else really going on. For housekeeping and the state of the podcast and all that kind of stuff. It's ever evolving. We're going to keep changing things until we get it into the right thing that we want. So whatever. That's it. Who cares? Let's get into a little topic that I like to call what's gripping our controllers. And if you're new to the podcast, we take this time to discuss what we've been up to since last we spoke, like what we're playing, game pickups, all that kind of fun stuff. And I have with me, as always, Keg. What's going on, dude?
You say as always, man. You do a lot of stuff. I'm just with you like a couple of times a month.
You're always on the podcast, though.
I mean, you and I talk all the time, but yeah, it's whatever. Yeah. Don't you know what I've been doing?
What?
We finally beat Dragon's Dogma 2, which was a very fun game. A very excellent game. A shitty ending. Stupid ending. Yeah, it was.
That sucks.
But it was a great game, so I'm still gonna, And then I started a new game called High on Life, which is insane. Anybody that's a Rick and Morty fan, it's basically everybody. It's everybody that does Rick and Morty is this game. It's incredibly funny. I mean, incredibly funny.
Nice.
And I'm not, and it's a first person shooter, and I'm not a big first person shooter fan, but it's just that fun. Other than that, I mean, I'm just, I'm looking forward to Dragon Age, the Veilguard, which comes out Halloween.
Nice.
Other than that, man, there's not really much I've been playing, And,
talk about Dragon's Dogma. How long was that game? Was that a super long game?
Not really. I mean, I guess you could go through it fairly quickly. It depends on you. I mean, like I take my time in a lot of the games, so I don't try to just hurry through it. But some of like the monsters that you fight in that game are just incredible. The vocations are freaking insane. Like where you can be like a mystic archer or just an archer or what. I mean, there's like so many different, the sword, spear dude, whatever. And yeah, there's like so many different, I think there's like 9 different vocations, and eventually as you go on with the game, you can find them all. But they're just, just be able to, the monsters on the screen, they're like incredibly huge, and like you could climb up them and start stabbing them on the back.
Oh, that's
just,
cool.
It's just that fun of a game. It really is.
What's the battle system like in that? Is it, can you...
It depends on your vocation. So like if you're an archer, you can just shoot people from
not that. I mean, is it like turn-based? Is it action?
It's all action. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no turn-based to it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, not at all. But I think there's certain parts of the game that it kind of does that.
Okay.
It's a very good story. It's a super good story. And I'll tell you what, I'm an RPG dude. You give me a good story, I'm there for like 13, 14 hours. It's like, and it was that good of a game. It really was that good of a game. And then nice. Like just fighting, and again, all the big monsters like the Cyclops and the Minotaurs and the ogres and all this, they're all big monsters. And it was just, especially if you were like a thief or something like that, or like a warrior, you could just like walk up the dude's back and just start stabbing him in the neck. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
I had a lot of fun with that game. I really did.
And that's what on the PS5, right?
I played it on the PS5. I think it's on multiple systems.
Is it on everything? Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
cool. What have I been up to, man? I've played. As far as adventure, as far as retro games, I played a shit ton probably since last time. I played Adventure Island on the NES, which, dude, holy balls, that game is fucking hard. I was not anticipating how difficult that game was going to be.
But when you were 12 years old, that game was easy.
I never played it when I was 12 years old. This is the first time I'm playing it. Was just whatever few weeks back or whenever I finished that. But you know what game was even fucking harder than that is I went through and I've played through Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo. Dude, and that game can
kiss your ass.
Yeah, dude, that game, I liked it. The game was really cool. I thought the graphics were well done. The gameplay the gameplay is pretty good. I thought the jumping mechanics were kind of but yeah, that game is hard as fuck, dude. Like, oh my gosh, I would say that one's harder than Adventure Island. That one's literally, that's harder than Ghosts and Goblins. Those fucking games, fuck. I mean, dude, seriously, that game was mental.
Oh, so was it like Ghosts and Goblins, where you couldn't save? You just literally had to set aside like 5.5, 6 hours of your life just to play through the whole thing? So
you're right. So you have a limited amount of continues, and then once you use them up, you're fucked, and you get sent back. Now, I'll admit, dude, I cheated the fuck out of that game and used I own the physical cartridge, but I used
the Game Genie.
I used save states through what and because I wasn't fucking around like playing that game for a month because I was streaming it, right? I'm not gonna play it for a month on stream and just. But I did want to check it out and experience it. So yeah, I save stated the shit out of it, and it was still hard as balls. So. But it's still a good game. I'm excited to do the review for that game. So you'll see that on the homebrew side of things. I just finished Zed and Zee was the last game I finished streaming.
Is that the one you were doing with your daughter?
No, that's Rusty Lake. We're almost done with that one. We probably have one more session to finish that. Zed and Zee is the one that's made by Tengen Games.
Okay.
The new one. Yeah. So that's the one that you're about to hear the interview with Jeff Silvers in this episode. That was a fun game. It was very like arcade like I could totally see that game being played on like an arcade cabinet back in the day. It's just basically you can play single player or co-op, which is kind of cool. But the objective is you run around the stage and you grab the gold or whatever the hell the object is to pick up. And then once you get all the objects, then you go on to the next stage and then there's a boss at the end. And sometimes it's an actual like foe that you have to avoid, or it's like the stage is doing something weird and you have to still get all your shit. So super fun game. Yeah, I think Tengen Games is off to a really good start with that, and it's cool to see what they're going to be doing moving forward. I also played Crater Song, which was another good game. That one you played with like 2 NES controllers, and I just did an interview. Well, you heard, if you listen to the last episode, that was the interview I did was for that game. That's with John Vanderhoff, I believe his name was. Dude, I've been having so many interviews and shit. I'm like, they're all running together. But super cool guy. Great game. And then the last one I've played since we last talked was The Adventures of Panzer III. That one I got a review copy, or no, I got a beta copy of the game. Same with Zed and Zee, I should say. I did get a review copy of that game to play. The Adventures of Panzer III, I got a beta copy to play. And that game is great. Don't pass Adventures of Panzer III up if you're a homebrew fan or a retro game fan at all. Buy that. Go find it, whether you get it digitally or you go buy a physical copy. I don't know. I think their Kickstarter just ended, so I don't know if you can still get it physical, but they may come back around through... Oh, I forgot who they're using. But anyway, that's kind of what I've been doing as far as the retro stuff. Yeah, dude, I've been playing a shit ton. And then modern stuff, my daughter and I started playing Martha's Dead, which is kind of just a super story-driven adventure game. In fact, it's right here. So for those that on the PS5, I really like it. It's super cool. It's eerie as shit, and it's kind of just one of those story-driven games where it's not. Some people don't kind of frown upon these games, or it's like it's not really a game. You're just kind of, it's like an interactive novel, I guess is the best way to say it. But it's spooky as shit, and it's got a really involved story that you also help move along. So I don't know. I've been digging that one. Is that it? That's all. I think that might be everything that I've been doing. It's cool though. I definitely recommend it, and I'll be doing a review for all.
So it's a spooker. It's a spooker, like a Resident Evil or like the 13th Hour, like the.
Yeah, the 13th Hour is probably a better description of it. Oh, then
what was it called? Martha's what?
Martha's Dead.
Okay.
It's trippy because it's like you're there. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but there's your twins, and your one twin dies, and the one that doesn't die takes on at being the twin that died And so there's this whole story around like her tricking everybody that she's the dead twin, or that she's the twin that actually died when she's not. So it's kind of morbid, to be honest with you, but it's really well done.
Well, no,
super
that's
well
great,
done.
dude. I'm good for a good spooker.
Yeah,
I am.
No, super well done. But is that it? Any pickup? I mean, it's so hard when we do these like once a month now. Like, I mean, I can go through. I'm on. I have. Where am I at for my NES collection? I guess would be the only thing worth talking about. I think I'm at like 89 games now. There, so I'm taking it slow. I don't need to buy everything at one time, so I'm just picking up here and there as I get a chance to go to some retro store and through like my subscription things. But what else have I picked up? That might be it.
You know,
I'm sure there's more.
Yeah,
I haven't been. I mean, things will probably start turning around a little bit now too, because summer's coming to an end. So all that
exactly. All the new games are going to start coming out, and whatever. And anybody that listens to this podcast knows that I play several of the new ones. It depends. I hit or miss. You know, I can only. You know, I don't like first person shooters, but.
But you're playing.
There's. You know what though? I mean, I thought about this a lot too. When I played Skyrim, and Elder Scrolls Skyrim is like one of the best games I've ever played. It kind of reminded me of like Kingsfield, and I think there's a lot of people that that worked for that game. And Kingsfield was a great game.
I loved Kingsfield back in the day.
Yeah. And I think Skyrim was a lot like that. And a lot of just like you could just walk around and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. It was a very open world. I don't remember Kingsfield being that open, but maybe it was. I don't remember. It's been so long.
I remember Kingsfield going back and forth. You had to go back to certain places. Like, they had hidden walls at the very beginning of that game.
Dude, I do remember that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that would got you the best armor in the game, but you had to get past certain things, and it was like, but that's what this game kind of reminded me of. So,
nice.
I'm looking for that kind of game, and I'm not sure if because I am I'm in the market for a new game, but something that's going to captivate me. You know what I mean? It's like something's going to grab me and like want me to play for 13 hours straight, and I'm not running into that.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a whole nother discussion that we could have. I don't want to get too far off the topic here, but yeah, definitely the new AAA stuff is, I don't know, there's a few games here and there, but right now I kind of lean towards more quirky shit to get my experiences with more modern stuff, just because I was pissed, dude. Not pissed, but I was super looking forward to that new Star Wars game that just came out, that Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, and I heard it just sucked.
Yeah, I've been hearing different opinions of it. Some people like it. Some people say it's very mid, where they're just kind of like, I could take it or leave it. A lot of people were disappointed in the fact that it's like it had the huge opportunity to make something just great and kind of didn't, which sucks.
Like they had the world to do it and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I'll still pick it up, but I'm not going to spend $80 on it or whatever. I'll wait till it goes on sale and I'll grab it like digitally or something. I did that on purpose too. Usually I'm like a day, like if something's like really like, dude, I want this game, I'm like, but I had this funny feeling that Ubisoft was going to fuck this one up. And it kind of sounds like they did a little bit. So I'll still play it eventually, but I'm not going to.
It's too bad, dude, because like it's a good company, but I think I think they're getting to the point now where it's like mass producing. Come on, let's get them out there instead of actually putting the content in the game. You know,
that's why I love homebrew shit and indie stuff is because you're not on a deadline. You can take your dear sweet time making the game that you want to make, and it shows in the product. You know, because you don't have there's not a big company behind you saying, "Hey, we have a deadline. We have to get it out by this time because we have to do this thing or whatever." And yeah, I don't know. That's a different topic for whenever. But anyway.
Well, no, yeah, this is you and I. Actually, this is you and I not even being on the podcast. This is you and I. So, yeah. No, hell no. This is what we talk about.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just don't I don't want to get into it. Let's save that topic because we could go off on like an hour.
Well, you look like you want to.
What's that?
You look like you want to go on. Yeah. You totally look like you want to just go off on a freaking, hey, this sucks and F that and whatever. Yeah. You look like you just want to fire off. Dude.
I don't. Like, I mean, I kind of do, but I don't know. I have my opinions and you'll hear them. Maybe I don't know. We'll talk about it at some point. But I think what we need to do. How you doing on your drink? I'm still good for a little bit.
Yep. No, I'm good too. Yep.
All right. Let's talk about something more positive, which is the arcade. And I wasn't sure exactly how to talk.
How to start this.
Yeah. Words are fucking hard tonight. Yeah. I wasn't exactly sure how to go about this, but what we wanted to do, and moving forward, what our topics are going to be about is just kind of, we wanted to get into like video game experiences that we've had, whether it was together or a shared separately kind of thing or whatever, because it's interesting and we want to talk about it. It's my podcast. So,
well, no, and again, it's not even just that. It's going back to where it all started, and I think for both of us, we kind of started around the same time. I got a little jump start on you, but because I'm a couple years older than you are, but and I'm not talking about like pinball and all that other shit, because pinball was like a thing in the 60s, the Who and whatever, that was,
Yeah.
I'm talking about like the first time you walk into an arcade and see like Pac-Man.
So, I mean, I don't even know if there's no way I remember the first time I walked into an arcade, but do you remember like, what was your first arcade?
I think my first arcade, and I'm not even kidding, even though, I was a teenager at the time, so I think it might have been Aladdin's Castle in Regency Mall.
Yeah.
There was an arcade there. I think that might have been my first arcade, but the most influential one after that was Go Bananas. Dude, that place was, oh my God, you walked in there and it was like, and then you and I and again, I was thinking about this earlier. You and I have traveled to places. We went up to, the next city and we went to like Sega's Time Out and and all these other places. It's like, oh man. But yes, Go Bananas was pretty much my first regular arcade, if you could say that.
That you like went to frequently. Well, that still wasn't very far from your house either.
Right.
It was totally like walking distance.
Yep.
Because that was like, we're gonna talk local here for a second, but there was like, it wasn't in Elmwood Plaza, but it was like,
No,
right
it was
by
over
like
by
the old Piggly Wiggly and
yeah.
Zayre's and shit like that. Yeah,
Yep, that's where it was.
Excuse me.
But at that time, and again, it was probably 83, 84.
Yeah.
That was the place to be.
Yeah, I was never a big Go Bananas fan because they didn't have Dragon's Lair. So
Yeah, they did not. But you know what they did, and this was absolutely my favorite game back then, was Elevator Action. Dude, I played the snot out of that game. Dude, I'd go into I had $5 in my hand. I'd go to the arcade. I'd go to Go Bananas, and that's what I would do, is spend it all on Elevator Action.
I was going to ask you that, like, what was your go-to arcade game?
Yep.
It was Elevator Action?
Absolutely. Yeah, I played a lot of that one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, or some of the earlier ones, like I played Kangaroo. Kangaroo was a great game.
Fuck yeah, Kangaroo is awesome. I have that one on my multi.
Once you got to the third stage with the punch monkeys and stuff, and dude, I just absolutely love that game. And then there was other games I played. I never got into like Pac-Man or Donkey Kong or even, it wasn't even Donkey Kong at the time. I think when I first started going, it was Mario Brothers. It was just like where you were like jumping in,
Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember what my first arcade game, because I was going to the arcades well before Dragon's Lair was a thing. So I'm trying to remember Donkey Kong was definitely one of the main draws for me at the arcade. I played a shit ton of Donkey Kong. I also played a shit ton of Kung Fu Master.
Oh, yeah. Oh, with the two joysticks? Oh, the two joysticks?
No, that's Karate Champ.
Oh, that was the greatest one, dude.
Yeah, well, Karate Champ was pretty good, too, at the arcade. I feel like it ported poorly over to most consoles.
Oh, yeah, because,
the one Karate Champ for the NES sucks balls.
Yeah. It was built for an arcade. It was built for, one-on-one kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool. I'm trying to think of other. I mean, I played a lot. I love track and field at the arcade. I love one of my favorite games.
We used to put our comb. Again, this is 80 things. So
when you had hair,
yeah. So we used to put our comb in between our fingers, and you tap on one, and it hit the other one, and you just go.
Yeah, because at the arcade, you had the arcade. I think there's a few different arcade versions of track and field, but the one that's when it first came out, at least you had to go the two buttons.
It was alternate.
Times.
It was alternate. Yeah. So then you just put a comb in between your fingers and just tap the hell out of one. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I forgot that There's
even, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Leave me a message or whatever. But I'm almost positive there was also a trackball version where you ran with the trackball.
I don't remember that.
It's been so. I'm almost positive, but I don't know. I'd have to do some research, which I'm fucking lazy. I'm not doing that shit.
Well, no, and there was a track and field too at some point, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was as good.
Was there ever a track and field 2 at the arcade? I don't remember that. I remember
that's all I remember was at the arcade. Yeah.
Well, I have the one for the NES.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, I have track and field 2 for the NES, but I don't.
No, I remember seeing it at the arcade, but no, the original track and field. You and I just dominated that shit. And oh my God, I just now I think about it, Punch Out. Punch Out was one of my
another good one.
Oh my God, dude. I could not walk into a freaking arcade and not play Punch Out.
That game was amazing. I love that game. With the 2 screens and everything. That was the first one that had the top screen. Yeah. I never got very far in it, but I do remember playing it.
I did.
Though,
and against dudes that you don't even see now, dude, like a Pizza Pasta and freaking Kid Quick and oh my God. Yeah. The arcade game was so good.
It was so good. Yeah, it was very, very good. I'm trying to think, like, dude, getting that feeling, like that feeling is kind of gone.
Of the excitement, the anticipation, the excitement.
And maybe it was just because we were kids. Because I remember, like the arcade, the Aladdin's Castle was in like the local mall for us.
Right.
So like when we would go shopping or whatever at the mall for whatever, just shopping stuff.
Actually, it's where our parents dumped us off.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then it would always be like,
here's
"Hey, can
$5, go."
Yeah, can I play something at the arcade or whatever?" And it was just. Or, you get together with buddies, and I remember them having, like, early bird specials, so you would, if you got, like, I don't know, you go there with, like, $6 and got $7 worth of tokens or some shit like that. I don't remember. Yeah. But, dude, and it was, like, the coolest thing, and anybody that follows me on social media has probably saw my post of my mom actually mailed me a token. She found a token from Aladdin's Castle, which was my childhood arcade growing up, and she just wrote in the note like, "Hey, you forgot to spend one." But dude, I was like, dude, this is so fucking cool that
I thought that was absolutely the funniest and greatest thing ever, dude. I mean, I love your mom anyways, but yeah, I think that was absolutely the coolest thing she could have ever done.
I was trying to think of what to do with it, right? Like I was like, how am I going to display it? And I had a couple people like reach out on social media with like, hey, there's these boxes or whatnot. And I was like, that's kind of cool. But you know what I ended up doing is I put it on the ledge on the top of my Dragon's Lair cabinet that if you could see there, just like you used to do back in the day when you were, like when you wanted next.
Oh yeah, when you were next. Yeah.
You would just put it up there.
When you were next. Yep.
So that's where I put it, and I think that
they still do that at pool tables at bars.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly where it belongs. It's just chilling up on top of an arcade machine, waiting for somebody to take next. And
Dude, that's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm not going to move it. I don't need to like put it in a case or anything. I don't give a shit. What the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah, no, but it's it's us. Dude, I wish I would. Yeah, dude, that's us. And again, that's why we're talking about this. I mean, I talk about Go Bananas, but I think your first thing was probably Aladdin's Castle.
It was definitely Aladdin. Well, Aladdin's Castle was there before Go Bananas, but then I would go to Go Bananas. So Go Bananas came later, and what was cool about Go Bananas was that it came around when. Like you were, and like some of your friends even were able to drive.
Yeah, so maybe it was probably a little earlier than that. I was probably about 14, 15, but
right. But I think you had older friends that could drive or whatever, and it was literally within walking distance. But we were also then old enough to be able to walk over there, without our parents freaking out.
Right, dude, exactly. Well,
I feel like every time we talk about, I have a story about getting into fucking trouble all the goddamn time. So I used to go, dude. I remember, this is funny. If my mom listens to these too once in a while, and she can attest to it,
I love you, Mary.
But dude, I remember going like telling her like, hey, I'm gonna go watch so and so's football game or baseball game or whatever at the park, dude, and I would just get on my bike and ride over to the fucking mall to go be at the arcade and play. And I remember one time she couldn't find me, and this was obviously way before cell phones and everything else. And I remember sitting there playing at the arcade and feeling somebody grab me by the back of the neck and drag me out of there. And
my God.
I was like, what? And she was like, and I was young, and I was just like, dude,
and that place was, dude, well, you're talking about Regency Mall or whatever, but it was 2 miles away. It was literally 2 miles away.
And it was a busy ass road too. It was on like a highway.
Yeah.
It was on
the highway. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, she couldn't find me, and like everyone's calling all over the place. Yeah. Jason rode his bike to the arcade when I was like fucking 9 or 10 years old, maybe. And yeah, I got grounded for that. I was just trying to fucking play some video games. I mean, for Christ's sakes.
Holy crap, dude. Yeah.
And I wasn't a bad kid, for Christ's sakes, but all these stories have something to do with.
No, but yeah, and a lot of them had to do with me. But yeah,
that one did not. I don't remember who I was.
That one did not.
No.
but yeah, that's funnier than hell.
Well, and then it was the other thing too. Like the arcade games got so huge, you couldn't go to even like a local like convenience store or gas station. They were everywhere, dude.
There was like it was like 10 people deep. You know,
at the gas station.
Yeah. And I remember, like, we used to go to, like, 4-Star Video used to have something, you know? It was like, even just to sit there and play, like, Space Invaders.
I used to go to the, what was it? The open pantry right around the corner from our house, right on Durand and whatever, to play Mrs. Pac-Man all the time. Yeah. So, yeah, like, there was always that kind of stuff. Which
Holy
is
crap, dude. Mystic. Yeah, no, it was, you know what? But again, like you said, dude, there was always a line.
Yeah, there'd be a couple people deep, yeah. And that's the kind of stuff.
Oh, those are good times. That was good times. And that's really good times. Yeah, I don't know if you could do that now, but yeah.
I think you could. I mean, there are retro arcades that are out there. I mean, look at like Garcade and stuff like that are around just even in this area. But it's as an adult, it doesn't quite have the same niche, feeling as
yeah,
it's definitely a niche out. But I miss that kind of stuff. And like with my kids now, well, my kids are spoiled as shit because they have a dad that collects video games and loves video games. So it's like, you know, back in the day, be like, dude, do you have Nintendo? And it'd be like, oh yeah, I have. Oh no, I don't have Nintendo. I have fucking Atari still or whatever.
No, hell no. You look at them and go, which one?
Yeah. My kids don't have to worry about that. Their friends come down here and they're like, holy balls. Like, you got freaking every console and you got arcade games in your basement. It's just like, yeah, it's just because Dad's a nerd. But, yeah,
that's what happens.
It is. But yeah, the whole arcade, like, gig, I wish there was a way that we could feel that again. I mean, and there kind of is. That's why we go to conventions and things like that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why we go to the Midwest Gaming Classic. You know, that's why, dude, that gives me that. Don't get me wrong. And that's absolutely the feeling when I walk in there and see every freaking arcade game. The only thing is way more like pinball games.
Yeah. And I like pinball, don't get me wrong, but like put me in front of an arcade machine.
But that's kind of not my time. Pinball was like 70s, you know. Like,
yeah, like a little bit before us, right?
Yeah. Like I said, The Who, Tommy, you know, that was Pinball Wizard. You know, I mean, it was so. No, after that, when it became like Saturday morning cartoons, when you could watch, you could watch Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Jungle Hunt and
dude, Jungle Hunt, that was a freaking great game. I forgot about that one. I love that game,
dude. And they made like Saturday morning cartoons out of it. You know, it was.
I had Jungle Hunt for my ColecoVision, I think. Yeah, dude, that's badass. Did they make? I think they made an Atari version of it. Even
I really don't even know, to be honest with you. But yeah,
I don't know where my Atari games are.
Yeah, you probably got it somewhere. But
it might.
Yeah, no, those were holy crap, dude! Like Sunday morning or Saturday mornings were like it was always a cartoon morning, you know. So every kid
Saturday morning cartoons,
yeah. Everybody wanted to wake up at like. Well, for us, it was 8 o'clock in the morning and watch that shit till like 11. And at that year, dude, it was Pac-Man Fever or Pac-Man, whatever the hell it was. And then Donkey Kong and Jungle Hunt. And I forget what the other one was. Was Cubert
on there? Did Cubert
have
some?
Yep, Cubert. Yeah. Holy crap!
There was a Dragon's Lair cartoon as well, and that sucked. But I remember,
because it was not even close to, but it wasn't the animation of it wasn't Don Bluth, dude.
Well, no, they're not gonna pay Don Bluth to do a Saturday morning cartoon. Right. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
it wasn't that shit,
and that's fine and good for him that he made that. Yeah.
One of the things I thought was cool about that cartoon though is you'd be watching the cartoon. And it would stop like during like an action thing, and it would ask you, which way do you think Dirk should go? Should he jump over the barrel or do this? And then they would come back and they'd be like, this is okay. If you said he should jump over the barrel, he would have got hit in the face by a flying giraffe dick or something. But this is what he actually did.
Wasn't he made like a 900 number that you had to call or something?
They should have been. They probably.
Yeah, they would have made some money off of that shit. But,
right.
Yeah.
I don't think that many people were watching because Dragon's Lair was a very like everybody knows of Dragon's Lair, but it's still a very niche game. Like not many people have actually played it and like were crazy enough to keep playing it.
Not as stupid as you are that you know everything, but it's not. Yeah, and you know all of it, but it's no shit. I can sit down and play it and would not give it. I don't know. I love how that game is played. It's you just have to react when you need to react. You know, I love that game, the way that it is. But yeah, you just you're stupid. You just know everything.
Dude, you know it's funny too. Like Markella, my oldest daughter, her boyfriend was over here. Not too long ago, and he jumped in. I wasn't home, but they were down here, and he jumped onto the Dragon's Lair cabinet and started playing it. He was getting all pissed off because he was like, "This shit don't work. Like you can't move the dude right. Like all the same shit that you would hear at like the arcade,
right?
Back in the day where people would put in their 50 cents and just get." Frustrated because they were like, fuck this game. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, you just didn't understand the way that it plays. Yeah.
Because it was new. It was totally new. That wasn't a thing before. Like all the other games, you move the character, like you moved him right and he went right. Yep. Well, here, it's more of a cinematic game that you give inputs here and there to. It's quick time events, which is what it's described as now. But, it was just funny. Like it was like when Markella, my daughter, told me that, I chuckled because I was like, "Yeah, I heard that so many times at the arcade back in the day, where people would just be pissed off."
And again,
like, this game is fucking stupid.
We cannot go without this podcast without explaining when you and I were in the arcade, and you were first sat down, or you didn't first sit down with it. You obviously knew it. But here you are, like freaking 8 years old, staring at Dragon's Lair, and all the kids around you are like, "Oh, let him play, man. He'll be done in a sec." And here you are, sit down.
15 minutes later, yep. And it takes it's around 15 minutes, 13 minutes, something like that, to play the whole game straight through. But then the whole whatever.
Damn, you're good.
I was even good at. I would have that happen with like Donkey Kong too back in the day. I'm not like any expert at Donkey Kong, but I was good enough to where like the teenagers would say, "Oh yeah, we'll let the little kid go through and play." And my mom would even warn him and be like, "He'll be here for a little bit," and then people would be like, "Oh wow." And I probably could get through like 5 stages maybe or whatever, and that would be about it. But it was still much further than the teenagers anticipated this little kid getting through. So I was just, I don't know. I always had a knack for it. I fucking love this shit, dude. And that's why I think,
you know what? I don't question you no more. You beat most people playing super. Well, holy crap. You beat most people playing Super Spike with your feet. So,
yeah, I did that.
And that was a thing. Actually, I wish I had video. That actually was a thing.
I have that game, so we can like recreate that on when are we getting together next weekend? Yeah, not this weekend,
crap,
but next
I
weekend.
haven't played that. I haven't played that game in 20 years.
Yeah, I have it. I just got. In fact, I think I have it. It's either that or I have Kings of the Beach. I might have.
I like that one too.
That wasn't bad either.
Yep.
Yeah, I just the arcade to me was like the start of it all, because the thing that I mean, obviously I had consoles, like I had Atari and I had a ColecoVision, but
again, this was before consoles. When the arcade came out, this was before consoles. This was before fucking, the Nintendo.
Well,
or even, I guess the Atari came out in the late 70s, but it was like one of those, you walked in, you played Galaga. You walked in, you played Space Invaders. You walked in, you played Pac-Man. It was, and Pac-Man obviously got big. Yeah.
Well, and the arcades still existed, like through like the Atari and Television, ColecoVision, because the power of the actual arcade cabinets was so far beyond what any of these home consoles could. You could look at like Pac-Man for the Atari compared to like Pac-Man for the arcade.
Yeah,
something
it
even
was
simple.
Not even close.
It's not even close. They couldn't even make a fucking square dot. They made lines, for Christ's sake. Atari.
Well.
But it wasn't until the NES came out where you had because Super Mario Brothers originally came out as an arcade machine, and then once it came out as on console, and I think people were like, "Holy shit!" The game for this console is a dead nuts port from the arcade game, is where people were really turned the video game industry around, because they were like, we can finally have these arcade games at home, and it's not like some cheap knockoff or anything. And then when you saw things like, Donkey Kong and Popeye and all these other ports of arcade games look and play pretty much dead nuts to the arcade, I think that's kind of what changed. Not only, I think it changed people to
I think it changed before that. I really do change. I think it changed before that, because I remember Pong. I remember.
Oh, yeah. No. But there was a crash. Remember, there was that crash because you had Pong and then Atari, and then it crashed. Like the Intellivision, ColecoVision eras really weren't shit. They didn't. It wasn't. It was just the diehards that bought the shit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Nintendo came around that it reignited the video game.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And it was because
and then that's when Sega came around too. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just I don't know.
Which reminds me of the other arcade. We used to go to Sega's Timeout all the time.
Why don't I remember? Where was that?
That was at Southridge.
Sega's
Timeout.
Yeah. Yes,
dude,
yes.
and it was called, and it literally was called Sega's Timeout. That's where you used to play that freaking wrestling game all the time. Matt Mania? Yeah.
That's another one. I fucking love that game.
Yeah. Holy crap, that's insane. Yeah. Those, dude, yeah. Oh, what's great times. Absolutely great times.
Yeah, I forgot about that arcade. Yeah, that one we used to go to. Jesus, yeah, no. Arcades were great. We need that. I don't know. There's just... Well, I think that's also like some of the one-up stuff that's all like the machines that I have behind me, why they've been popular enough, because they just have such nostalgia for them, where they're like, oh yeah, I'll get that.
What, dude? It was also a social place. It was also a place to, meet girls and talk to dudes and hang out with dudes.
Meet girls? I never have seen any girls at the arcade.
Oh my God, dude. Have you ever, dude? Yeah, I did. Back when we used to hang out at Regency Mall, because Aladdin's Castle, all the chicks were waiting for the dudes. Yep.
Oh,
dude,
that right?
It was a thing. And again, this is 80s, but
yeah.
And yeah, no, I like I like the idea of having an area where they can all get together and play games and people
just hang
get
out,
together.
right?
And,
Yeah. It was a great place for young people to go and, like you said, like socialize. Well, now I was a little bit younger. How old? You're like what? 4 years older than me?
Yes.
Okay. So we kind of bridge that gap just a little bit, where like my end of arcade days were kind of like still in middle school, where like I gave a shit about girls, but I kind of gave a shit about Nintendo a little bit more.
Well, and I was a part of that too, but yeah. I'm pretty sure that you and I were together on that one.
Yeah. So it wasn't like,
it
wasn't until like high school that I was like, okay, I need to, like, I don't give a shit about Nintendo anymore, which actually wasn't the case, but whatever. I'm a nerd. Who cares? Fuck you. But yeah, no, I'm just laughing. Now I'm just laughing at myself, and I don't remember where I was going with this.
No, that's great. But yeah, no, and you were still kind of in the games at that time, but
yeah, big time. Like, because I remember I got my NES when I was and it's the year that it came out. I was in 6th grade. So yeah, and that's kind of when the arcade kind of fell off for me, was when I had my NES and could play arcade games at home, essentially, Well, and then once you started being able
that's what changed everything. You know what? Because it was like there's arcades, and then all of a sudden, all you see on TV is like, oh, holy crap, Nintendo's coming out, and Nintendo has Super Mario Brothers.
Right.
And it wasn't even freaking Super Mario Brothers wasn't even at the arcade. It was. No, it was Mario Brothers.
No, both of them were there. Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers was also an arcade machine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden freaking Nintendo came out and it changed life.
It did. It changed everything. Like, it literally like took all the gas out of the arcades for the most part. Then you started seeing the arcades do shit like have more like Dance Dance Revolution games and more gimmicky games that maybe
big contraptions
at home. Yeah.
I remember watching one of them, a pinball game that was Monday Night Football pinball, and it was like huge. Like there was like 15 people standing around it going, yeah.
Well, and then
but you got to have, that's what it is. You got to have you have to have an attraction.
Yeah, and I remember being so frustrated later in life, like when I had kids and we started going on vacations and whatnot, and you'd be like, hey, we went to this water park or whatever, and they have an arcade. Let's go check it out. And the idea of an arcade now is nothing but these fucking machines that spit out tickets that's like, shoot the clown in the dick and you get
Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, that kind of shit where it's like there's no actual
Chuck E. Cheese
arcade games. I'm like, fuck this.
Spend $500 and you might get you might get like
a fucking spider ring or some dumb shit.
A chattering teeth.
Yeah. or a fucking Jolly Rancher. I paid $35 for this Jolly Rancher, goddamn. Better taste good.
Dude, you know what? Dave and Buster's is doing the same thing.
Sure,
it really is. Dave and Buster's is doing this. I like Dave and Buster's, don't get me wrong, but it's they're kind of doing the same thing. Here.
No, I get it. It's just whatever.
Here's a bunch of tickets, man, you can use for your half off on your next drink.
Oh, right. Yeah, so they just get you with alcohol, so whatever. Dude, are we done? Do we have anything else to add to this?
No, I you know what? I think we had a very good conversation, dude. I get it. You know what? I loved the fact that I could travel through the time that, going through the first time that we were in the arcade. Oh my God, it just, when your eyes light up and you're like, holy shit. But I did not get into the Pac-Man or the Donkey Kong, or I always went to something stupid.
something, a little bit different.
Yeah, different.
I did follow the trends. I played Pac-Man. I played Donkey Kong. I played
Popeye. I played freaking
Popeye's a good game, dude. That game's good.
Fucking where you had to catch all the hearts, dude. That was the greatest game. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I remember. Or like elevator action or kangaroo. Those kind of games. I played a lot. Those were my high school games, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, just good stuff, man. I miss it. Dude, I so miss it.
Awesome.
That's great.
So they were so great times.
All right. We're ending this. You listen to us babble long enough, and when we come back, you're going to get my interview with Jeff Silvers, the new owner of Tengen Games, and we're going to talk his new game under that label, Zed and Zee. See you in a bit. All right. Welcome back, everybody. And now I have the pleasure of sitting down with Jeff Silvers of... well, actually, here, we're just going to go ahead and hit you with the hardest question first. How the heck do you pronounce it? Is it Tengen or Tengen?
It is Tengen with a hard G, and I wouldn't feel bad about not knowing that because my best friend who's been with me the entire part of this process, and I've, kind of been filling him in on everything, he'll still flop back and forth between a hard and a soft G, but it's Tengen, hard G.
Right. Yeah, it was funny because before I started, before we sat down, I was doing some research and I was like, you know what, I should probably know how to pronounce this. And then I was like, nah, forget it. I'll just ask him. It'll be kind of a funny little thing. So Tengen. All right. Well, that's good to know. So anyway, thanks so much for jumping on here with us. And why don't you just give a quick introduction about yourself and your kind of journey to this point so far with Tengen?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Silvers, and I've been kind of making video games in different ways for a few years. And as you mentioned, I'm releasing and producing games under Tengen, which, if your audience, I know, is all retro gaming enthusiasts, I imagine, so they probably recognize the Tengen name. I actually began the process of registering the trademark for that last year, and so I do legally own the Tengen name when it comes to video games. So I am able to use that name now. So that's the Tengen side of that. That's how I'm able to do that. And Sweet. In terms of my journey into how I got here, I've been, even before I had the ability to actually program or create a video game, I had been designing video games since I was probably like 4. Like, I would sit down and do these draw little maps like in Nintendo Power of little video games that I had basically just made up in my head that, I had no way of actually, realizing or anything like that. But I would do stuff like that. And then as I got older and we got a computer, I kind of started toying around with, making games in whatever way I could. I remember I made something in some really early version of like RPG Maker, stuff like that. And the Games Factory, if anyone remembers that. But started making NES games about 4 years ago during the pandemic. That was my pandemic project, And I've actually released a couple free ones under a different name already, under the name Omni Retro Games. They're all out there on like itch, and you can find them. But Zed and Zee, which is our, the first game from Tengen Games under this label, this is the first commercial, really full, big game that I've produced for the NES. Super proud of it. I'm sure we're going to talk about it here in a moment, but yeah, that's kind of where I started, was just drawing stuff on paper and actually, making little games on a computer, and now, producing full retail NES games.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the revival of the Tengen name, what inspired you, or what made you think to use Tengen or to go after a name, or was that, let me jump back into that one. Was there any other names that you had thought about doing, or did you see Tengen out there and you're like, well, let's grab that? Or what was what inspired you with the whole Tengen name thing?
Well, a few years, because I've always loved Tengen, even when I was a kid, and I didn't really know like the full story about what Tengen had done. Sure. I know I was somehow aware of the fact that they were making games without Nintendo's permission, and I thought that was kind of cool. And I don't know how much most people know about what Tengen did, but they had begun, they produced their own unlicensed NES games back in the 90s. Those, weird black cartridges that you see sometimes. Those were Tengen. And they did it without Nintendo's permission. Some people say they use questionably legal means to get around the lockout chip. It's really just that they use straight up illegal means to get around it. They kind of illegally acquired the copyrighted code for the NES chip and then created their own version of it. But it was all in an effort to fight Nintendo because Nintendo was placing a lot of restrictions around what developers were allowed to do. And they were, they wanted to produce more games a year. They wanted to produce their own cartridges and not really be beholden to, this other company that was kind of acting as the gatekeeper for what could be out there on, the biggest platform for video games. And so as I got older and I kind of learned more and more about that story and what Tengen had done, it's kind of been an inspiration for me, really, because Tengen wasn't like a small video game company by any means. They were a subsidiary of Atari and then later of Warner. But still what they did is kind of like at the heart of, I feel like, what the indie game movement is now, which is we have an artistic vision. We don't want anyone standing in the way of us getting that vision out to the public and out to our audience. We want to do things the way that we want to do them. So it wasn't really a matter of looking at different names to use. Because I mentioned I was using a name before that I was putting games out as Omni Retro. I was just going to continue doing that. I had mentioned to a friend offhand, like, gosh, I really wish somebody could just buy the Tengen name from whomever it is that owns it. I wish they could just buy it and make new retro games. And then I learned a couple years after that, nobody owned it. It had been abandoned for like 30 years. No one owned the name anymore.
Really?
Because when you own a trademark, you don't own it in perpetuity. You have to continue using it.
Sure.
If you don't use it anymore, it's considered legally abandoned. It's not even 100% clear who owns the rights to like the old Tengen games, but if it's Warner Brothers, they've not done anything with the Tengen name in like years and years. So it had been legally abandoned. I found that out.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would have figured somebody would have picked up the name and maybe it was being used in another country for something or for maybe being used for something else completely. But that kind of runs into the second question I was going to ask is, can you like give us the process as far as registering Tengen and the trademark and how is it a lengthy process? I have no idea how that all works.
Well, and I didn't have any idea either before I started this. Most people hire an attorney to handle this, but I decided to go the cheap route about it. But you start by you apply for the trademark, and that's just filling out the paperwork to say here's the name I want to use. Here's what I want to use it for specifically. There are technically other companies that own the Tengen name for like automotive parts or something.
Okay.
So I guess I can't branch out into automotive parts. Darn. But yeah, exactly. My empire's ruined. But nobody owned it for anything even remotely related to video games or even software. So you put the application out, you send it to the United States trademark office. They have to go through a search where they determine if it's, if it's too similar to existing trademarks, if it's likely to cause any confusion. There's a point in the process where they publish the mark and they allow anybody who thinks that it might infringe on their trademarks or on their rights to oppose the trademark. And that was actually the part that scared me a little bit because that's when, if Warner Brothers has, any legal team that's just looking for any old trademarks they might have had to see if anyone's processed those, that's when they would have caught it. But I mean, everything went as smoothly as it possibly could. It is kind of a long process. I filed the initial paperwork in February of 2023, and we're technically not done yet.
Okay.
Within the next couple weeks, I should get the final registration, which is when I can start using the little R with a circle around it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it is a lengthy process. For sure. And you actually have to begin using the trademark commercially before they will register the mark even. So that's why I'm already using, the Tengen name now. You have to do that before the process is finalized.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have never thought that. You figure they would have had to go through the entire process before you could use his name. That's interesting. I suppose they want to see if it's actually going to be used in the way it's being registered. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and also just because a trademark is supposed to protect something that's associated with your business. So yeah, and I know your audience is riveted by our detailed look into trademark law and
right
and paperwork process. Let me tell you about all the different paperwork here. I'm going to really dive in deep into some of these forms.
Yeah, right. Gross. So, I guess moving forward, so now let's talk about Zed and Zee for a little bit. What are you doing? So you do have physical copies of that available, right?
Yes, yeah. If you go to tengengames.net/Zed and Zee, we have physical copies available for the NES and for Famicom. Those are being published by our partners at Tengen Games, who are awesome. Tengen Retro Games. It's a when I got my copy of it in the mail before we started selling them, just very impressed with the quality. So I think definitely something to check out if you're a retro game collector, or if you're even if you're a Tengen. I know there are some people that just love to collect the old Tengen games. I'm not saying you have to have this to make that collection complete. I'm not going to be as arrogant as to say that. But it is a cool little conversation piece if you have that collection already. And we also have a Windows version available for download that comes with the NES ROM, DRM free. You can put it in whatever emulator you want, throw it on your RetroPie.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I should have looked more into this, but what kind of cart are you using? Are you using just a standard gray cart, or were you able to get like the black old slanty cart?
We are using the standard cart, and I want to look in the future into using the Tengen style cart.
I don't know how you would do that. You'd have to get somebody to, I think, custom that for you.
We would, yeah. That's part of the problem, is that, to keep the price reasonable for something like this, you're using a lot of mass-produced parts, because there is, a whole industry now behind producing cartridges like this and everything. So, so we didn't do anything cool and custom like that. I'm not ruling it out for the future, though. I think that would be cool. But this does look like a standard gray NES cart.
Okay. So as far as the team, you said you have another partner, but who's in charge of, or do you farm any of this out, or who, like, from start to finish, what's your development process look like, or did it look like for Zed and Zee? Let's start there.
Well, Zed and Zee is probably a weird example, because when it started, it was never really supposed to be like a game that anyone was going to play. Oh. I used the NES Maker software, and originally this just started as kind of a almost like a Hello World project. I was just trying to get used to how everything worked, and it was sort of a self-tutorial thing. And I told myself, no one's going to play this. You don't even have to worry about it being fun or good. It's fine. And originally I was going to just use the built-in scripts. NES Maker comes with, a lot of it. It's basically a script library with a really great UI built into it and everything. And so my idea was, I want to create a game where I write no custom code. I want to use everything that's included. And then I almost immediately broke that promise to myself and started writing a lot of custom code.
Okay.
And I think about a month in, about a month into production was when I actually implemented a 2-player mode, and that's when I realized, I'm like, all right, this is like a whole game now. This isn't. But I think that, that sort of ad hoc process carried over into the rest of production, because I really didn't have much of a defined production process. It was just kind of, I was throwing stuff there and seeing like, well, this is cool. I think I'll do this, and kind of building on whatever features were already there. Like I did an interview with Retro Gamer Magazine recently, which I think is going to run in a couple months. Yeah. And they asked me afterwards, they're like, hey, do you have any like production documents, design documents you can show us, like a cool behind the scenes kind of thing we could include? And I was like, I don't. And that's when I realized I think almost anything I drew was on a Post-it that got thrown away right after I drew it. I'm like, all right, that's what the HUD's going to look like. Cool. That's in the trash.
Right.
So Zed and Zee is a poor example of any kind of production pipeline because it was just all chaos and bedlam. In terms of anybody else on the team, the person I was talking about before is my friend Nick, who is credited in the game as a gameplay consultant.
Okay.
Along with my daughter Mackenzie. They both actually contributed ideas that ended up really being used. Like if you play the game and you like the genie boss, that was entirely my daughter's idea, which I love.
Nice.
That is a good idea. But yeah, it was most of the production, aside from the things that come with NES Maker and the things that are contributed by the community, there's a lot of code that they put out there that just anybody can use.
Sure.
Most of the production really was just me. Like everything graphically was mine. Every pixel you see there was something that I had put together. The music was done by two guys named Kevin81 and Jolly Shadow.
Okay.
They had really great NES composers who had put some tracks out there online, basically just under a free license.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and I had originally listened to them just to kind of get an idea of, like I was going to compose my own music, but I suck at it. So I was, let me get some composition ideas. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, that's the theme music for my woods level. That's the theme music for my desert. So I was like, all right, I'm going to use these. But yeah, mostly though, it was a project that I didn't really have anyone else on the team actively working on. It was kind of just me for 4 years.
Gotcha. Well, kudos, because the game seems, for something that you say is cobbled together, it seems very, very polished. I had played it, I don't know, a week or so ago, and then I just played some more of it before we started talking here, and yeah, it's super polished compared to a lot of games that I play. So kudos on that. It's a fun little game. What was like your inspiration behind that Zed and Zee? Did you have like, I want to make a game like this, or you were just like, I'm just going to start putting something together, and that's how it kind of came about?
I think when I first started, I was really thinking about the static screen arcade platformers like Bubble Bobble, Donkey Kong, Mario Brothers, where you really have just the one screen and you have an objective you have to complete on that screen and you move on to the next one. Yeah, okay. Mario Brothers in particular, and I get Bubble Bobble also, because of the co-op multiplayer, ended up being bigger inspirations down the line as that influenced more and more of the design of the game. But yeah, gameplay wise, it was really the static screen platformer that you kind of saw in the early 80s. Yeah. And then graphically and thematically, Mega Man had a pretty big influence on just the idea of every enemy having their own kind of, being a robot that has its own sort of personality and possibly had a function before they were being misused by, this evil scientist and that sort of thing.
It took me a little bit to realize I could actually jump on top of the enemies. I was like, oh, you dummy, when I did it by accident at one point, and I was like, oh, you can actually do that. That's cool. So where was I going? That's what I was going to ask. Sorry, I had brain fart. Is there an ending?
There is an ending, yeah. Okay. It doesn't do like the Mario Brothers thing where you get to 99 and it loops.
Gotcha.
There is an ending. There are 6 worlds total. Every world has 6 levels and then a boss battle. And so there is an ending after the boss battle. I don't know if I should say what it is or not.
No, don't spoil it. I just wanted to know if you could actually beat the game, or if it was like a true arcade fashion where it just kept looping and looping.
No, it is on the one hand, it doesn't loop. I will say that the arcade inspiration does still kind of play through to the end because it does show you your final score. And my intention was that, even if you've beaten the game, you want to go back and try to beat it again from the beginning to get a better score. Beat it faster, or kill more enemies, or whatever. So the arcade influence still is there, but it doesn't loop. No, there's a definite ending to the game.
Gotcha. I always like to ask, too, was there any part in the development process that was just you were banging your head against the wall and trying to figure out like a piece that just wasn't coming together, whether it was code or design or anything like that?
There were a few, and they won't mean anything to anybody because they didn't end up in the game for the most part. There were a lot of things where I was like, yeah, I definitely was. And I think that's the benefit of creating something kind of in a bubble the way I did, because I kept this one under wraps. This future projects I'm probably going to start sharing more and more during the actual process. But this one was, I didn't really share this publicly with anybody, so no one knew what I was doing. So it was totally cool if I was like, hey, this feature I've been working on for a month that isn't doing what it's supposed to, it's gone, it's in the junkyard now, I don't have to worry about it. Nice. In terms of things that ended up in the game, the final boss battle was tricky because it involves a lot of things coming on screen at once, and the NES infamously handles that quite poorly. So I had to make a few compromises in terms of the presentation of that level, which actually I think ended up looking better. I won't spoil too much by saying this. It's not like it's a huge shock or anything. The final boss includes a very large robot that in the final game is static. He's standing on like a hoverboard. Everything looks like it's moving. It's still just one screen, but everything looks like you're moving forward, and you've got spikes coming at you and tiles and stuff like that you have to collect. Originally, that giant robot was animated, and that whole level was so sluggish as a result. Because, and I ended up just kind of scrapping that. And even then, I had to really, I really had to kind of streamline some of the code there to get that. And my code's a jumbled mess anyway all the time, so that was difficult. But that was something that you can still see in the final game, but it was a bit of a pain trying to get that to run at any kind of playable speed.
Gotcha. So now, do you have a development background at all, or is this something you picked up just for the game?
It's like I don't have a professional development background at all. I had made some games for fun. I hope they were fun. Kind of back in the day, and I had done that on and off just as little hobby projects or whatever. But no professional development background. This was just something that I've done because I love the NES. I love video games. And it was always a dream. I mean, everybody who plays a video game wants to make one, but it was always a video game, or it was always a dream for me to make an NES game in particular. And so to be able to do that, and it's an actual product that somebody can go buy, and they can get a physical cartridge of it. I've seen pictures of it in people's collections, and it's just, warms my heart to see that. Like, it's, so yeah, I no professional background in this, but definitely something that I've kind of toyed with for most of my life.
Well, and if I can just, NES Maker, I believe, has really brought out just a ton of creativity in people that don't necessarily have development backgrounds, but can still create really good games because the community is so helpful. I've talked to a number of people now, and even I've talked to Joel a couple times at the Midwest Gaming Classic the last couple of years, and been to the bite-offs and things like that. And it's just, it's so cool. That was what really started my super interest in homebrew games, was when I saw NES Maker, and I was like, oh, really? So, again, like you said, everybody always wants to make their own game, and I think it's awesome what Joe and the NES Maker stuff has done for bringing back retro gaming in the homebrew community, because this is not slowing down. I mean, there's new NES games coming out all the time now.
Yeah, I was almost concerned because I think I mentioned this earlier, but Zed and Zee took about 4 years to make. I wasn't working on it that whole time. There was a period of about 8 months or so where I'd kind of stopped because of some things going on. But yeah, I was a little concerned as the production wore on. I'm like, I wonder if I hope I don't miss the NES homebrew, bubble, if it's a bubble. I hope that I don't miss that. And
right,
man, it's full steam ahead. I mean, it's it just gets increased attention, like increased mainstream attention even. Mainstream video game outlets covering it. And yeah, it doesn't look like it's slowing down. And it's other systems too, like Genesis has got some great stuff.
Yeah, they got a whole bunch of stuff coming out this year that, people jumped on that bandwagon like super heavy this last year. So I'm excited about some of that.
Yeah, I think it's great to see people's passion for these old video game systems really being expressed in a tangible way like this, that it's not just like fan sites like we used to see in the early 2000s for NES. This is something that very literally is keeping the system alive, and it's keeping this platform alive.
Oh yeah,
and it's great to see that.
Yeah, it's like a piece of art, I mean, people can come out with new ideas that push the hardware to its limits and just be as creative as they want with zero handcuffs. So it's amazing. And there is nothing like opening up a brand new NES game that has the box, the manual, the old cartridge, the sleeve. And then, a lot of these people do big collector's editions where you have maps and trinkets and everything else that you really didn't have back in the NES days. So yeah, to me, I can't. In fact, I think I buy more homebrew games and NES games than I do modern games at this point, because I just love it, and I think a lot of people are following suit, and I also think people are following suit because of, just like I said, the wanting that physical media that modern games are obviously trying to ditch completely. It's just so fun. And then you own the game, right? So it's like, okay, I bought this game, I own it, I can play it forever until the plastic deteriorates,
Yeah, we're definitely moving toward a future where video game companies do not want you to own a game. And so it is nice to be able to have something that if you bought Zed and Zee and you had your fun with it and you want to resell it, you can do that. I can't even stop you. Think about that that's almost seems crazy now. I can't even stop you from doing that. You could sell it for $10 and just screw me out all that money, and it's cool. You could do that.
Right.
It's fine. It is so nice to have like a physical, tangible representation of a game. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. So what future projects do you have? Have you started anything, or I guess that you can talk about, or that you want to talk about? Are you going to keep going with NES under the Tengen name, or what's the future hold for you and Tengen, I guess?
I definitely want to continue with NES development. That might not be exclusively NES development. I'm also eyeing Game Boy, because that's another one of my favorite consoles, and it was a huge part of my childhood. And that's another one that GB Studio,
dude,
streamlines that process too. So
I just got my Game Boy Studio magazine in the mail a couple days ago. So yeah,
and that's another one with they both just have such great communities too, and yet NESmaker and GB Studio both. I also saw, I don't know if you saw this with NESmaker, but it looks like probably coming out sometime next year. The switch over to Retro Game Forge, and there's going to be, I guess, compatibility with Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
I was in the car with my girlfriend. We were driving up to Lake of the Ozarks this weekend, and I watched that video, and I'm basically like salivating in the car, like, babe, they've got Super Nintendo support now. So that'll probably be somewhere down the line, but immediately it's going to be probably a focus on NES still. I do want to try to get Zed and Zee ported to some additional consoles, and there's not too much I can talk about here because we don't have anything signed or finalized, but I am working on trying to get that ported to the Switch.
Yeah, so get that over on Switch. There's so many that are being ported over to Switch, which is so cool. Like, I know, like, Skate Cat's over there now. Jordan's game, Space Raft, just got a Switch release. There's a ton of them that are getting ported over there, and it's a good home for them too, because I feel like if they belong on any modern console, it should be a Nintendo console. And maybe that's just me being a fanboy, but it just, I don't know, they feel like they should be there.
Well, I think also there's something about the portability of the Switch that makes it feel like it's more appropriate for this kind of game, like this a little bit of a lighter retro kind of thing. Plus, it would be a little bit hilarious to see Tengen finally get a licensed Nintendo game.
Dude, I didn't even think about that. That would be absolutely hilarious. You need to make that happen. That would be sweet.
Yeah, that would just kind of come back full circle to all of that. In terms of new NES projects, I almost hesitate to say this, and I've not really talked too much about it. I really do want to make an NES wrestling game.
Dude, yeah, somebody needs to.
Yeah,
and don't make WrestleMania. I don't know if you've seen any of my other stuff. That's the right. I hate that damn game.
Well, and it's funny that you say that too, because what I've realized about wrestling games on the NES is if you ask anybody, because there were like 7 or 8, I think, on the NES, something like that.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one that was exclusive to the Famicom, and then there was one really good one that was made and then not released, which was UWC. If you've ever played that, the ROM's available online now.
I have not.
Oh man, you should check it out. It was this isn't a podcast about UWC, but it was a game that was developed with WCW wrestlers, so it has like Ric Flair and Sting, the Road Warriors, but they never released it. I think they made it maybe as a proposal to WCW, and it never got released, and then the ROM leaked online a couple of years ago. It's pretty easy to find.
Ooh,
not that I support piracy.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, but the thing that's interesting about pro wrestling games on the NES is if you ask anybody about it, everybody agrees that most of them weren't that good, except they always have their favorite that they think was really good, and all the rest of them suck. That's usually a person's opinion.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, I think for me, it's pro wrestling. I think.
Oh yeah, 100% pro wrestling.
Yeah, and that's what, man. Not to well, I don't care. It's my podcast. I can say whatever I want.
Yeah, you do whatever you want, man.
That's like my whole WrestleMania beef was. I was so excited for WrestleMania and WWF characters. And then we got what WrestleMania was, which was just a pile of hot garbage. It was just like, dude, just make pro wrestling, but have WWF licensed characters, and it would have been great. It would have sold like crazy. Instead, they gave us a game that couldn't even put 4 sides of ropes on a ring. That thing. All right, I got to stop before I.
It is kind of funny because I think pro wrestling, if you go by Japanese release dates, I don't know if it was the first wrestling game on NES, but I think it was. And
I think Muscle might have came out before that, if you consider that a wrestling game.
I think you're right. I think Muscle came out first, but it was certainly one of the earliest, probably the second one then. And they nailed the formula. You've got colorful characters, fun gameplay. It's great multiplayer. And then it was like everything else after that just tried to do completely different stuff, and mostly was pretty bad. But I think that I would love to make an NES wrestling game just because I've always loved that genre of game, and also because I feel like the bar is low. So
most definitely the bar is low.
Like I'm not cocky or arrogant about my abilities as a programmer. I think I could maybe make the second best wrestling game on the NES, only because we've seen what else is out there. Pro wrestling, I'm not going to get as good as that. So that's my aim. I want to make the second best wrestling game on the NES.
Even if you could have some customization, here we're just going to have a podcast about how to make a good NES wrestling game. All right, yeah, we'll discuss after. So, any other future besides any ideas besides a possible pro wrestling game?
It's funny. I only just recently kind of got into RPGs.
Oh yeah.
And so in my head, as I was playing them, anytime I play any game, and I've always been like this, I'm in my head thinking like, what would my version of this be? And so I have kind of toyed with that idea, but that's a huge undertaking. So realistically,
that's a big commitment.
It's a pretty big time commitment, and certainly something I'd probably have to start bringing some other people on board for. But it would be nice to not have a super grinding RPG on the NES. I feel like every single one was kind of the same formula. We went to town, found out what weapons you needed to buy,
grind for levels for like 3 hours to get there, buy your weapons, go to the next town, rinse and repeat. So yeah, cool RPG. Now I think getting back to Nestmaker real quick. Now were they doing a module that was a little bit more RPG-esque? I thought that was supposed to be on its way too.
You know, I don't really know where that is right now. I know that that's something that's been talked about since kind of the beginning of Nestmaker when it was first announced, and it was always sort of a goal for that. But I don't know that I've seen really too much development on that, and I don't know that if I did develop an RPG, I don't know that it would be on the NES.
Yeah,
I love the NES, but I think that that's one particular genre it's less well suited for than maybe something like Super Nintendo, or even just doing something, you know, I'm open even to developing new PC games or Steam, you know,
cool.
for Steam or something like that. So
very cool.
But yeah, you're right. NES RPGs. I actually really love the first Dragon Warrior.
Oh man, I just played that thing like 3 months ago or so. Was the first time I played it. I liked it, and I'm about to do a review on it. But holy grind!
Oh my gosh, it is a grind. It's one of the few games that I don't recommend playing on original hardware. You want to play in an emulator where you can just set the fast forward on and then just grind for ever, and then you can get to where you want to be to have fun.
I own the cartridge, but I did play it on my RetroPie, but I played it as I was playing it on the cartridge. That's usually what I do, just because of the convenience. I streamed it, so just the convenience of being able to just plug it in. It's HDMI. It's easy to get going. I don't have to run it through 18 other things. But I play them. I play the games like they're cartridge, so I don't use save states or anything like that. And dude, yeah, no, I'm not playing that game again.
Yeah, I play it probably once every couple years, and that gets my fill, and I'm good. But it's a grindy game. But an RPG. And then it really is hard for me to say that I have one particular kind of game that I want to make in the future, other than the two that I've mentioned, only because, again, it always comes down to just whatever I'm playing now. If I'm playing a Mario game, I want to make, I'm like, man, I could really make a cool side-scrolling platformer. And then I'll find myself playing Castlevania, and I'm like, I want to do some kind of horror, some kind of horror exploration business. So, I don't know. You'll all have to stay tuned to see what's next from Tengen Games.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I mean, wrapping this up here, is there anything else that you want to get out to everybody before we start winding down here?
I just want to say to anybody who has, even if it's not been to me directly, if you've expressed any sort of positive sentiment about Zed and Zee or Tengen Games, because I do go and read comments and kind of lurk on things like that. I appreciate everybody's feedback. I, wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be when I relaunched the Tengen name, but everyone seems to be pretty excited about it, which has been really cool. But just, thanks to everybody for the support, and, definitely more coming from Tengen in the future. So If you are excited about this, there's plenty more to be excited about coming up.
That's awesome. All right, then the last question I have is, give me your top 3 NES games of all time.
Oh, man. It's probably not going to sound like a very imaginative answer, but Mega Man 2.
Perfect.
Probably Super Mario 3. And The Legend of Zelda. Like I said, not imaginative ansers, but
doesn't matter. They're great games.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be imaginative.
There's a reason everybody loves those games.
Right.
Yeah.
And then let everybody know where they can find you if they want to get in contact with you for any reason. Socials, website, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, you can find us at tengengames.net, and that'll have all the information on how to purchase or download Zed and Zee. You can also find us on basically every social media platform under Tengen Games. So Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, we're on Blue Sky, Instagram. I think like Truth Social is the only thing I'm not on. But yeah, you can find us pretty much everywhere. Tengen Games. Check it out. Our YouTube channel right now doesn't have a whole lot. It's basically just the trailer. So apologies to everybody who subscribed and then saw nothing over the next few weeks, but we actually have some content that should be popping up there pretty soon. So that'll be a little more exciting.
Nice. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll get all this information. And obviously, we'll have all Tengen Games and Jeff's stuff in the show notes / description, depending on where you're hearing this interview. Yeah. Thanks again, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
He is the overwhelmed gamer. Jason's the overwhelmed gamer. He stopped playing 20 years ago and just started up again. Now his backlog of games to try seems like it never ends. Exploring older games